Hi and welcome to Fabric Bias. It is Sunday and I've started on recreating this card craft that my sister sent me and trying to see if I can't create it in fabric. And I cut out my fabric. I have a note, so I only need one strap piece. Oh, I did want to say that I've decided I'm going to add a strap across the back here, and then I'm going to put a very low profile fabric loop here. It'll be really, really small, so that if I decide to hang it this way, I think it will hold. But I haven't decided how I'm going to store this yet. So I'm going to put a teeny tiny little fabric loop here. I'll have to put something in it in order to hang it, but I'll have that option later. So I have, for the strap piece, I need a 2-inch wide by 6-inch long piece. I ended up, in this scrap fabric that I had an 8-inch long piece that was it was like an 1/8 inch shy of 3 inches. So I cut my strap and my fabric loop out of that, and you can see my fabric loop only needs to be 2 inches long, but I had that 1-inch piece. I'm going to go ahead and sew it up because I'm not going to use it in any other way, and then I might need a loop in another project or for some other reason. It just doesn't take any much longer to prep it as one long piece than it does as one short piece, so I'm just going to do it on here. And I have enough of this fabric left that I could do a second one, and I might end up doing that if this one, my measurements are off, so I'll already have that sewn up. And this one, because it was 8 inches and I need 6 inches, I just left it at that 8 because I'm in a trial mode here, and that'll allow me to, if 6 inches ends up being too short, once I start testing it out, then I have that length already there, and so I'll know whether or not this measurement is correct, and I'll be able to use that additional length, or not, I'll just cut it off. So to make these, it's the standard way to make this type of a belt or a strap. So you just take your fabric piece, whatever width it is, you fold it in half, and then you press that crease in, and then you take the raw edges and you fold it into that crease that you just made. And sometimes, like on a smaller one, I'll press one at a time. Sometimes on a larger one, I can get away with pressing both of them at the same time. And then you take that and you refold it in half again, and there you go. Okay, so now what I'm going to do with these is I'm just going to take them to the machine, and I'm going to stitch really close to the edge here to make sure I get that closed, and on this side, so I'll stitch both sides of this one. This one is so narrow, I think I'm going to use about that much of it, if that much. I'm not really worried about stitching both sides, but I do want it stitched close. Definitely on the fabric loop. These are the side pieces, so I've got them already matched up. I've got 2 interior pieces and 2 exterior pieces, and all I'm going to do with these is I'm going to take and I'm going to stitch them all the way around. You have to leave a turning gap, of course. But I'll clip my corners and then turn them right side out and press them open to get really sharp edges, I hope, with those. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the body piece. Now what I have done, this is my interior body piece matched up with my exterior. I pieced together the Pellon 808 on my exterior body piece, so it would get that rigidity that you have with this paper cardstock here. And I placed my 808 with a 1/4 inch away from the edge so that it wouldn't be in my seam allowance on that. So hopefully I can get a nice crisp corner. And the next thing I'm going to do with this piece, though, is I'm going to take it. You see my mess behind here, back here. That's my scraps. I'm going to take one end, and I'm going to match end to end here carefully. And then I'm just going to take a slight curve off of here so that it'll be straight in the center, and then it'll be a curve towards the edge, and that will be my flap. Because I do have it nicely lined up, I'll just show you. Take this, and I'm just going to make a slight curve, and that will give me, oops, just a little bit of rounding on the edge here. So now this is ready to go ahead, and I'm just going to sew all the way around, leaving the turning gaps at the top. So there's my next step. Okay, so I have everything stitched together, and then I have it pressed, and I've also drawn some lines on my body piece. So I had decided in the beginning that I wanted it to be 3¼ inches high, so I marked 3¼ inches here. And then it was going to be 1¼ inches deep, so I marked at 3¼ then 1¼ then 3¼ to go up the other side, and then 1¼ and then the rest is my flap here. And that's just to kind of give me a guideline here. I'm going to go ahead and press on those in just a second, but for now I'm going to leave this body piece alone. On the two side pieces, I went ahead and marked along one length here, and the reason I did that was they're really close in dimensions, the height and the width. And so I just wanted to make sure I didn't make a mistake when I started working with these on which way I was working. So I just marked that. I also, this one's a little wrinkly, I don't know if you can tell, but I started playing with it and looking at if I go 1/4 inch down, 1/4 inch up, and I end up with 5 mountain points here, how that was going to look. And I don't actually like it. I think it is too short. So what I'm going to do instead of that is I'm going to just try to go with 4 mountains here at this point with this, and I'm just going to try to evenly fold them. I actually did manage to get 4 mountains, equal mountain points, and it's just slightly bigger than 1/4 inch, and so maybe I can do it on this one. But that's essentially what I'm going to do until I end up with 4 mountain points, and I'm still off here. So I'm going to play with that until I have 4 mountain points here, and then I'm going to make sure I press them all solid, and then I'll be stitching here across the mountain, and then here across the valley as close to the edge as I can in a top stitch on that, so that will keep those pointed and folded for me. So that's my next step here, and I'll see you back in another minute. So I have pressed my body pieces at the lines that I marked, and I've also sewed all of my mountain and my valley folds on my 2 side pieces. I'm using a smaller travel iron right now, and I think that helped a lot because there's no water in it. So I didn't have to worry about steaming my fingers when I was pressing these, because I finger pressed it. Once I had it in the shape that I wanted, I finger pressed it all, and then I opened it up, and then along those mild creases I went back and I pressed all the mountain folds, and then I could still see my valley folds there because I was super careful, and I went back and pressed all my valley folds here. But you have to be careful not to press out the mountain folds when you're doing the valley folds, so having the little smaller iron that wasn't steaming my fingers while I was doing this, I think that helped out on that. So, all right, let's go on to the next phase. Okay, freeze for a second. You actually do not need to top stitch the last or the end mountain folds because of the way it's going to attach to the body here. You do not want to stitch this one and this one because it's unnecessary. I'm in the middle of ripping this one out right here, and I've already got those ripped out and ready to go. What you do want to do next, after you've got those stitched, not stitching the last 2 mountain folds, is make sure you do your top stitching before you move on. So you're going to top stitch across the straight edge here, and then on the side with the flap, you're going to come back to this mark back here, which is I think 1 1/4. You have the flap, and then you have that gap piece. So here to right here on the box, all the way back here, you're going to start here and come up and around to that point on the other side, of course, on that. So that is here, up and around the flap, here to this spot right here. So top stitch, and then hopefully you didn't stitch the mountain folds because you're going to be undoing them like I am. All right, moving on to the next step. Okay, so we're on to the next step, and that is to attach the sides here to the body piece. And so I'm going to attach first to the side that's closest to the flap in that 3 1/4 inch section here. And you're going to do that by taking the last mountain fold, and you're going to line that up with the edge of the body, and then stitch right inside that fold line there. So you'll be slightly shy of the edge of the fabric when you're done stitching on that. And what I did when I did it was I just lined it all up, took it to the machine, and then stitched it. You might want to pin it if you're not comfortable with that to keep it in place. Now when I go to attach the next side of the sides, it's going to go and attached here, and I'm going to be looping this up. So what I'm going to do there is use two-sided tape or glue. But the two-sided tape was on the table, so that's what I chose, because I want to make sure it does stay in place, and it's just a little bit more awkward at this point than it was just a second ago, because I've got this now folded up. This side, this will be open here. So this will be open, I'll be able to stitch here. When I go to do this side, it's going to get a little bit more awkward because that's going to be, again, lined up with the top here and the mountain fold on the body, side of the body, edge of the body. And now I'm going to be sewing inside this space. So let's see. I might actually stitch this one from the outside. I don't know. I'm going to play with it and I'll let you know what I do. On to the next phase. So I have the last side stitched on, and I want to show you. So this side I stitched from the inside, and you can see I kind of waffled around to the side here at the end. And so when I went to stitch on the second side, I decided I would stitch from the outside to try to get a nice straight look here. And so that's what I did. And so I got these two seams in, and I probably will go back through and rip this and restitch this anyway. You can see here my stitches got tinier because I got shoved up against some bulk of fabric. I didn't actually realize I was sewing the back of the bag to into my seam. So when I got done, I had to rip it and then restitch through here. And so if I had not done that, my stitching would have been a little more even there. But that I'm not going to fix. This side I don't like the waffle here, so I will go back through and fix that. On that, and I got it all the way done, and all I had left to do is put the snaps on, and I looked over and realized I didn't put the handle on the back. And I forgot to put the tab, the fabric loop on the side. So I went back through and I added those in there, and while I was doing that, I also noted, well, now I have a problem because my ends of each of these are unfinished. So I'm going to go ahead and work on figuring out how I want to solve that. I have an idea of what I want to do. It's a pretty simple fix on that. And when I should have added these in to make it easier to do, because it definitely wasn't fun to stitch it after the fact. Kind of see the wrinkling. The fabric, I haven't pressed it. Here's what it looks like from the inside. And so there it is on that. All right, let me go get some cards and I'll stick it in there and you can see that, and I'll put the snap on. And here it is. There's the final product there. There's the original that my sister made for me out of paper cardstock here. And here is the one that I recreated out of fabric. Did make a couple of pretty big mistakes on that, but that's okay. This is how it works when you're creating it, right? So there is the added handles on the back that I forgot to put in the beginning, and the fabric loop, and I did fix right here this seam so that it was sewn straighter. And so since I had to rip this open, I opted to rip the whole thing, and that opened up the bag for me and allowed me to better access to the back. So what I did was I stitched it this again, and then once I had the handle on, I also stitched down here a second time, because on the inside there is a flap here, and so I stitched that second bit of the flap down, and that captures my raw edges inside there, and so it's no longer exposed. So the cards I was making them for is just an excuse to actually try to make the bag, but it is a little bit too tall. So if I did actually want to make them for these cards, I would shorten them up about 1/2 inch in the height on that, but that's okay. So I think it came out pretty cute. So there it is. I hope you like it. I hope that wherever and whenever you're at, you're having a great time. And thanks for watching.